The sky above the human colony was calm until a great shadow crossed over the settlement. People looked up and their eyes grew wide. A massive alien vessel drifted through the air, its silver surface catching the sunlight like a blade. The hum of its engines shook the ground, making windows rattle and tools fall from workbenches. Children clung to their parents, and even the bravest workers paused what they were doing. The humans had seen ships before, but nothing of this size or design. This was a royal ship, one that belonged not to ordinary travelers but to the leaders of an alien empire. When it settled on the open field beyond the colony, dust rose in a heavy cloud, and the air grew thick with tension. From the ship's ramp, tall figures began to descend. Alien guards in dark armor formed a line, their weapons gleaming in the light. At their center walked a young alien prince, his steps firm and confident. His skin carried a faint metallic sheen and his eyes burned with pride. The people whispered quietly, unsure of what to expect. The prince was famous in stories carried by traders, proud, fierce, and known for his temper. But it was not only the prince that drew the attention of the crowd. Behind him came something far more extraordinary, a dragon. The creature moved with a power that made the earth feel smaller. Its scales shimmered with a strange glow, shifting between shades of blue and green like the ocean in sunlight. Its wings were folded tightly against its body, but even folded they stretched taller than a house. The dragon's eyes scanned the humans and many stepped back, hearts pounding. Its gaze was sharp, but there was something more behind it, something that looked alive with thought. The prince lifted his hand as if presenting his treasure. His voice rang out, deep and commanding. "This is my dragon. It is bound to me and me alone. None shall touch it. None shall come near. To defy this is to invite death." The words struck fear into the crowd. Mothers pulled children close. Men stood stiff, their hands trembling. No one dared to move closer. The dragon let out a low growl, a sound that rumbled like thunder rolling over distant hills. The humans bowed their heads, trying not to meet its eyes. Yet among them was a girl who did not bow. Her name was Mira. She stood near the front of the gathering, her eyes locked on the dragon. Unlike the others, she showed no fear. She was young, her clothes simple, her hair tied back in a loose braid. Where others trembled, she held herself steady. Mira had always been curious. While others spoke of aliens with suspicion, she listened with interest. Where others feared strange creatures, she felt drawn to them. Now, as she looked at the dragon, she did not see a beast of destruction. She saw grace, power, and sadness hidden behind its eyes. The prince noticed her. His sharp gaze narrowed as he studied her calm face. He had expected fear. He enjoyed fear. But this girl did not give it to him. Instead, she looked straight at the dragon as if she wanted to understand it. "You," the prince said, his voice carrying across the field. "Do you not hear my words? Do you not fear my dragon?" Mira lifted her chin. "I hear your words. But fear is not what I feel," the crowd gasped. Whispers spread quickly. A human girl speaking back to a royal prince was unthinkable. Some pulled at her arm, begging her to be silent, but she did not move. The prince frowned, his pride pricked by her calmness. Yet before he could speak again, the dragon shifted. Its great head turned and its eyes locked on Mira. A hush fell over the field. The beast tilted its head slightly, studying her the way a hawk might study prey. But instead of striking, it remained still. Mira's heart beat fast, but she did not look away. She had the strange feeling that the dragon understood her presence. It was as though the beast was waiting to see what she would do next. The prince raised his hand once more. "Remember my words. To touch my dragon is to defy me. To defy me is to die." His guards slammed their weapons against the ground to emphasize the warning. The people lowered their heads again, too frightened to meet the prince's gaze. Only Mira remained upright, her eyes still fixed on the dragon. The sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the settlement. The alien ship loomed like a mountain of steel, and the dragon's form stood as a living monument beside it. The prince turned sharply and walked toward the colony's central hall, his guards following closely. The dragon stayed behind, its great form blocking part of the field like a wall of scales and wings. The humans began to scatter slowly, whispering nervously about what they had seen. But Mira did not leave. She stood quietly, her gaze steady as the dragon's eyes met hers again. For the first time, the beast lowered its head ever so slightly, as if acknowledging her presence. Mira smiled. It was the beginning of something no one had expected. The next day, the colony stirred with restless energy. The landing of the alien prince's ship had unsettled everyone. Farmers worked their fields nervously. Merchants kept glancing at the horizon, and children whispered about the dragon with wide eyes. For the first time since the colony had been built, people felt as though they were living under a shadow. The dragon did not return to the skies. Instead, it remained near the prince's vessel. Its massive body rested like a hill of shimmering scales. Its wings folded neatly but ready to spread at any moment. Every time it shifted, the ground trembled. Its breath came out in steady gusts like waves crashing against stone. The prince took pride in showing his beast. From time to time, he walked with his guards along the field, pointing to the dragon and speaking of its power. He described battles where it had burned enemy ships and torn through defenses. He spoke with sharp pride as though every victory belonged more to him than to the creature itself. The humans listened quietly, their fear growing stronger with each story. Mira listened as well, but her thoughts were different. She had watched the dragon closely, even as others stayed far back. While it looked fierce, she noticed small things that others ignored. Its eyes followed every movement with care, not with hunger. Its head tilted slightly whenever children's voices carried across the field. Once, when a bird flew too close, the dragon merely watched it instead of snapping it out of the air. Mira thought that no beast that lived only for destruction would show such patience. That evening, as the sun dropped behind the hills, Mira walked toward the field again. The air was cooler, and most of the colonists had gone inside. The dragon lay still, its body glowing faintly as the last light touched its scales. She stopped a short distance away, her heart steady, but her thoughts racing. The dragon's head lifted. Its golden eyes focused on her with sharp awareness. Mira felt a rush of energy in her chest, but she did not turn back. "You are not what he says you are," she whispered, though she knew the dragon could not understand her words. "You are more than a weapon." The dragon let out a slow rumble, not loud enough to frighten, but deep enough to make the ground hum beneath her feet. Mira smiled softly, taking it as a sign that her presence was not unwelcome. Suddenly, a voice broke the quiet. "What are you doing here?" Mira turned to see one of the prince's guards standing nearby. His armor reflected the fading light, and his face was hard with suspicion. He placed a hand on the long weapon at his side, though he did not raise it. "I am watching," Mira answered calmly. The guard frowned. "You should not linger. The prince has given orders." "The beast is dangerous." Mira glanced at the dragon again. Its gaze remained fixed on her, calm and curious. Then she turned back to the guard. "It does not seem dangerous to me." The guard shook his head, muttering something about foolish humans, and walked away to resume his patrol. Mira stayed a moment longer, standing in quiet defiance. The dragon lowered its head slightly as if acknowledging her courage before closing its eyes. The next morning, the prince gathered both his guards and the humans of the colony. He stood proudly in front of the dragon, his voice sharp and commanding. "Know this," he declared, "my dragon is not your friend. It is bound to me and me alone. Its loyalty is mine. It obeys no one else. Do not mistake its silence for kindness. Touch it and you will answer with your life." The people nodded quickly, afraid to challenge him. Fear hung heavy in the air. The prince seemed satisfied, his pride swelling as he looked upon the nervous faces. But then his eyes landed on Mira. She stood among the crowd, still steady, still unshaken. The prince narrowed his gaze. "You," he said. "You were bold yesterday. Do you still feel no fear now?" Mira met his eyes. "I feel respect. Fear and respect are not the same." The humans gasped again. The prince's face hardened, but before he could speak further, the dragon stirred. It turned its massive head toward Mira, rumbling deep in its chest. The sound was not threatening, but seemed like recognition. The crowd froze in silence. The prince clenched his fists, unwilling to show his surprise. "Remember your place," he said coldly. "You are human. Do not forget who commands here." He turned sharply and walked back to his ship, his guards following. The humans quickly dispersed, whispering about the girl's courage and the dragon's strange reaction. Mira stayed where she was, her eyes meeting the dragon's again. She felt certain now. There was more to this creature than the prince allowed anyone to see. That night, as stars lit the sky, Mira lay awake in her small home. Her thoughts returned to the dragon's eyes, to the way it had lowered its head ever so slightly when she stood before it. She knew there was a bond forming, something fragile but real. And she also knew that the prince had noticed it too. The colony's square was crowded the next day. The prince had called for another meeting, and people gathered nervously to hear what he would say. His tall guards stood in a line, weapons gleaming, their faces sharp and unreadable. Behind them, the dragon rested like a living wall, its wings folded but its presence filling the open space. The prince stepped forward, his cloak flowing behind him. His voice was cold, every word sharp as a blade. Your colony stands because my empire allows it. You will respect my laws while I am here. My dragon is not yours to admire. Your stares are an insult to me. Remember this, humans. His words spread like a heavy shadow over the crowd. Men and women lowered their eyes. Children hid behind their parents, and silence covered the square. The humans wanted peace. They wanted the prince to leave without trouble, but not everyone bowed. Mira stood tall among the crowd, her eyes steady. She listened carefully, but her gaze drifted to the dragon. The beast lifted its head slightly, golden eyes locking with hers. It was a silent connection that no one else seemed to notice. The prince's attention shifted. He saw her again. His face tightened. You, he said, pointing toward her. Why do you look at my dragon with such boldness? Do you seek to test me? The crowd gasped. All eyes turned to Mira. She felt the weight of their stares, but she did not flinch. I only see what others do not, she answered. Her voice was calm. The prince narrowed his eyes. And what is it you see? I see a creature that thinks. A creature that feels, she said. Not a weapon. Not a trophy. A living being. Whispers spread quickly through the crowd. Some admired her courage, but others feared her words would bring punishment upon them all. The prince's face darkened. He took a step forward, his hand resting on the hilt of his blade. You speak foolishness, he said. This dragon is mine. Its will is mine. Its power is mine. Do not confuse silence with weakness. The dragon shifted behind him, its massive tail brushing the ground. It gave a low rumble, not of anger, but of unease. The humans froze, too frightened to move. Only Mira noticed the way the dragon's eyes flicked to her, as though waiting for her reaction. She held her ground. You may command it, but you do not own its spirit. The words cut through the air. The prince's guards bristled, ready to silence her, but the prince raised his hand. His pride demanded that he handle this himself. Be careful, human, he warned. Your tongue walks close to danger. Do not think my patience endless. The crowd shifted nervously, pulling their children closer. Some silently begged Mira with their eyes to stop, to be quiet, to avoid the wrath of the alien ruler. But Mira did not bow her head. The prince stepped closer, towering over her. His metallic eyes glowed faintly in the light. Tell me, girl, do you not fear death? Mira looked up at him. Her voice was steady. I fear living without truth more than I fear death. The silence that followed was heavy. Even the guards looked uncertain. No one had ever spoken to the prince in such a way. His jaw tightened and his hands curled into fists. For a moment it seemed he might strike her. But then the dragon moved. It rose from its resting place, wings unfolding slightly, casting long shadows over the square. The rumble in its chest grew louder, echoing through the air like distant thunder. The crowd fell to their knees, covering their heads. But the dragon's eyes remained fixed on Mira, not with rage but with recognition. The prince froze. His control was slipping, and he knew it. He turned quickly to the beast, raising his voice. Stay! The dragon obeyed, but did not lower its gaze from Mira. It remained alert, watching her closely as if guarding her from harm. The prince's pride burned. His face flushed with anger, but he forced a thin smile to hide it. Enough, he said coldly. This gathering is over. He turned sharply and walked back toward his ship, his guards following like shadows. The dragon lowered itself again, but did not take its eyes off Mira until the last moment. The humans slowly rose, murmuring among themselves. Some shook their heads at Mira's daring, while others whispered of her courage. She felt their mixed stares, but kept her eyes on the dragon, her heart steady. Later that evening, Mira sat by the river at the edge of the colony. The water flowed calmly, carrying the colors of the sunset. She thought of the prince's anger, of the dragon's watchful eyes, and of the strange bond that seemed to grow stronger each time they looked at one another. She knew the prince would not forgive her boldness easily. His pride would demand that he prove his strength. But she also knew the dragon was different. It had seen her, chosen to look at her, and that meant something. The stars appeared one by one in the darkening sky. Mira lifted her gaze to them and made a silent promise. She would not step back. She would not be silent. Whatever came next, she would face it with the same courage that had carried her through today. And deep in the field, where the alien ship rested, the dragon opened its golden eyes again, as though it too was waiting for what would come. The colony awoke to a day brighter than most, but the air felt heavy with unease. Word had spread quickly about the meeting in the square, about the human girl who dared to challenge the alien prince. Some admired Mira's bravery, but many whispered warnings. They feared her courage would bring punishment upon them all. Still, Mira felt no regret. Her thoughts remained fixed on the dragon. Each moment she had stood before it, she felt more certain that the creature was not the monster the prince claimed it to be. She could not forget the way its golden eyes lingered on her, steady and searching, as if it wanted to understand her as much as she wanted to understand it. By midday, the prince announced a grand gathering on the open field. He wanted to display his dragon again, this time with even greater pride. His guards marched in lines, their armor gleaming, their steps shaking the ground. The humans gathered nervously, drawn by both fear and curiosity. Children clutched their parents' hands while elders whispered prayers under their breath. The dragon stood tall, its scales glittering in the light of the sun, its wings stretched once wide and powerful, before folding neatly against its body again. A hush fell across the field. Even the sound of the wind seemed to fade in the presence of the beast. The prince raised his voice loud and sharp. Here stands the greatest treasure of my house. It has crushed armies and burned ships to ash. It answers only to me. None shall touch it. To lay a hand upon my dragon is to sign your death. The people trembled. They knew the threat was not empty. The prince's pride was fierce, and his temper was known even in faraway colonies. None would dare break his command, except one. Mira stood at the front of the crowd. Her heart beat fast, but her resolve was steady. She looked at the dragon not with fear, but with quiet determination. She remembered the way it had lowered its head toward her, the way it had watched her when all others hid their eyes. Something inside her told her that the dragon was waiting. The prince noticed her again. His eyes narrowed. You stand here once more. Have you learned nothing of fear, girl? Mira did not answer him. She stepped forward, each movement drawing gasps from the crowd. Murmurs rose quickly, voices filled with shock and dread. The guards shifted uneasily, hands tightening on their weapons, but they waited for their master's command. The prince lifted his hand. Stop, he said, his voice sharp with warning. Do not take another step. Mira kept walking. Her eyes stayed on the dragon. She could feel its gaze on her, warm and unblinking. She stopped when she stood before its massive head. The ground vibrated with the rhythm of its breath, and the heat from its body brushed against her skin. The prince's voice thundered across the field. Touch it and you die. The guards raised their weapons ready to strike. The crowd cried out in fear. But Mira did not turn back. Slowly, with steady hands, she lifted her arm and placed her palm gently on the dragon's snout. The world seemed to stop. The dragon's golden eyes widened slightly, then softened. Its breath slowed, and it let out a deep rumble, not of anger, but of peace. It lowered its great head closer to the ground, pressing lightly against her hand. The crowd gasped in disbelief. Some covered their mouths. Others fell silent, unable to believe what they were seeing. The beast that no one dared approach, the creature said to burn worlds, had bowed to the touch of a human girl. The prince's face burned with fury. He shouted, his voice breaking with rage. Guards, seize her! The guards rushed forward, but the dragon moved before they could. It swung its massive head between Mira and the soldiers, letting out a roar that shook the earth. The sound was so powerful that people fell to their knees, covering their ears. The guards froze in terror, unable to step closer. Mira stood untouched, her hand still resting on the dragon's scales. Her heart raced, but her spirit felt calm. She could feel the warmth of the creature beneath her palm, the steady pulse of life that matched her own. The prince shouted again, but the dragon ignored him. Instead, it turned its head slightly, brushing against Mira with surprising gentleness. It was as if the beast itself had chosen her. The humans stared in awe. Whispers spread quickly through the crowd. She touched it. It accepted her. The dragon chose the girl. The prince clenched his fists, his pride shattered. Never before had anyone dared to defy him, and never before had his dragon refused his command. He glared at Mira, his voice low and dangerous. You think this is victory, human? You have only invited your end. But even as he spoke, the dragon stood firm, its golden eyes blazing with silent defiance. It was clear to all who watched that the bond between Mira and the beast had begun. The sun set slowly behind the hills, painting the sky with fire and gold. The field remained quiet, every human and alien watching the girl and the dragon. For the first time, the colony saw not fear but hope in the eyes of the creature they had been told to dread. And for the first time, the prince felt his control slipping away. The crowd scattered after the forbidden act, but no one forgot what they had seen. The image of Mira touching the dragon remained bright in their minds. Families whispered in their homes. Children spoke of her with wide eyes, and elders shook their heads in disbelief. Some believed she had brought danger to the colony. Others believed she had done something extraordinary, something that could not be undone. Inside his ship, the prince paced like a storm trapped in a cage. His pride was wounded, and his temper burned hotter than fire. Never before had anyone dared to defy his command, and never before had his dragon refused to obey. To him it was humiliation. To him it was betrayal. The guards stood silent at the edges of the chamber. None dared to speak, for the prince's rage was sharp and heavy. His hand rested on the hilt of his sword, his eyes glowing with fury as he replayed the scene in his mind. "She touched it," he muttered. "She defied me before them all, and the dragon obeyed her will." One guard finally spoke with caution. "My prince, the creature did not harm her. Perhaps it sensed something." "Silence," the prince snapped. His voice cut like a blade. "It obeys me. It belongs to me. This is nothing more than trickery." The guard bowed his head quickly, saying no more. The dragon lay outside, still calm. Its eyes glowed faintly under the moonlight as it rested in the open field. Though it appeared quiet, it kept turning its head toward the colony as if watching over someone. That someone was Mira. She lay awake in her small home, listening to the hushed voices of neighbors outside. Some spoke of her with worry, calling her reckless. Others spoke with awe, calling her brave. Mira listened without anger or pride. She only thought of the dragon, of the way it had lowered its head for her touch. By morning, the prince gathered the colony once more. His guards forced people into the square, their weapons gleaming. Fear rippled through the crowd as the prince stepped forward, his cloak whipping in the wind. The dragon stood behind him, silent and watchful. The prince's voice thundered. "You saw what happened. You saw this girl break my law and mock my power. Do not mistake this moment for victory. She will face punishment, and you will learn that no human can stand above me." Gasps spread through the crowd. Some cried out in protest, but most fell silent, too afraid to speak. The guards stepped forward, surrounding Mira. She stood calm, her eyes steady even as they pointed their weapons at her. The prince glared at her. "Why do you not tremble? Why do you not beg for mercy?" Mira's voice was clear. "Because mercy is not yours to give. The dragon has shown me more kindness than you ever could. It is not your power that frightens me. It is your fear of losing control." The words struck the air like a bell. The crowd gasped again, whispering to one another. The prince's jaw tightened. His pride could not bear such defiance. He raised his hand, ready to give the order. But before the guards could move, the dragon stepped forward. Its wings stretched wide, casting a shadow across the entire square. The beast let out a roar that shook the buildings, sending dust from the rooftops and making every heart pound with fear and awe. The guards froze, unable to move closer to Mira. The prince shouted commands, but the dragon did not listen. Its eyes glowed brighter, fixed only on the girl. It lowered its head beside her, placing itself like a shield between her and the soldiers. The people cried out in amazement. "It protects her," someone whispered. "The dragon protects the girl." The prince's fury boiled over. He struck the ground with his sword, sparks flying. "No!" he roared. "It is mine. It obeys me. This cannot be." But no matter how loudly he shouted, the dragon did not move from Mira's side. Mira placed her hand on its scales once again, her touch calm and steady. The rumble in the dragon's chest grew soft, almost like a song of reassurance. The people fell into silence, watching the bond grow stronger before their eyes. The prince looked around and saw the faces of the humans. No longer were they filled only with fear. Some looked at Mira with hope. Some even looked at the dragon with awe instead of terror. The shift struck him deeply. His control was slipping, and he could feel it. He turned away sharply, his voice bitter. "This is not over. I will remind you all who holds power here. With a sweep of his cloak, he stormed back toward his ship, his guards following in silence. The dragon did not follow. It stayed with Mira, its golden eyes steady as if declaring its choice to the world. The crowd remained frozen in place, whispering quietly, caught between fear of the prince and wonder at what they had seen. Mira stood firm, her hand resting gently on the dragon's scales. In that moment, the colony realized a truth that could not be hidden. The girl who feared nothing had become the center of a bond stronger than the commands of a prince. And the prince himself, no matter how proud, could not stop it. The colony was quieter than usual the next morning. People moved through the streets carefully, still thinking about what had happened the day before. Mira walked among them, her steps calm but determined. She knew that the prince's anger would not fade quickly. Yet she felt no fear, only a quiet certainty that the dragon had chosen her for a reason. By midday, the prince gathered the colonists in the square once again. His guards lined the field, weapons ready. The dragon stood beside him, though its gaze constantly shifted toward Mira. The humans knew this gathering would not be ordinary. They waited, hearts pounding. The prince's voice rang out, sharp and commanding. "You have seen the strength of my dragon. You have seen that it will obey me. Yet one human girl has dared to touch it. One human girl has mocked my command. This will not be ignored." He glared at Mira, his pride burned hotter than ever. "Do you not fear me? Do you not fear death?" Mira met his gaze steadily. "I do not fear you. I fear living without truth more than I fear your anger." The crowd gasped at her words. Murmurs rose. Even the prince's guards shifted uneasily. His authority, once unquestioned, felt fragile in the presence of her courage. "You speak boldly," the prince said. "Boldness will bring you only punishment. Do you think you can teach me strength?" Mira stepped closer to the dragon. Its golden eyes glimmered in the sunlight. It lowered its head slightly, letting her presence reach it fully. "Strength is not in fear," she said softly. "Strength is in trust. Strength is in knowing loyalty comes from respect, not threats. The dragon obeys because it chooses, not because it is forced." The prince's face tightened. His jaw clenched. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came. He had never heard such truths from anyone, especially not from a human. The dragon rumbled softly, a deep vibration that rolled through the square. Its gaze remained fixed on Mira, as though it understood every word. The humans stared in awe, recognizing the bond between girl and beast. Even the prince's guards began to realize that the dragon's loyalty was no longer just to its prince. The prince's pride wrestled with what he saw. His face flushed with anger and humiliation. Every instinct told him to strike, to reclaim control. Yet when he looked at the dragon and the girl, he could not find the courage to order harm. Something had shifted. The dragon's choice had unsettled him more deeply than he could admit. Mira spoke again, her voice calm and clear. "You rule with fear, but fear is fragile. Trust is strong. It cannot be taken by force, and it cannot be broken by threats. See the dragon. It has chosen to trust me. It will not hurt me, and neither will I hurt it." The prince's hands shook slightly. His heart raced, though he tried to hide it behind a mask of pride. He realized the humans were watching him differently now. They were not just afraid. They were learning. They were learning that courage and respect mattered more than titles or threats. The dragon shifted its massive body, brushing its head gently against Mira. The motion was quiet, almost tender, but it carried a message that could be understood by all who saw it. It was a declaration of loyalty. It was a statement that strength came from choice, not command. The prince could not deny it. His anger remained, but his certainty of control had cracked. He turned abruptly, lifting his hands to regain composure, but he knew it was too late. The bond between Mira and the dragon was visible to everyone, and it had changed the balance of power. The humans murmured among themselves. They saw not a prince and a beast, but a lesson unfolding. Courage and compassion, trust and respect could challenge even the strongest of rulers. Mira's presence and calm defiance had proven that humanity was not weak. The prince stepped back toward his ship, his face a mixture of pride, anger, and disbelief. The dragon did not follow him immediately. Its golden eyes stayed on Mira, its body relaxed yet alert, a silent guard and companion. Mira lowered her hand from the dragon's scales and looked around the square. She smiled gently, not with arrogance, but with understanding. The humans had seen strength that did not rely on fear. They had seen that courage could change hearts, even those hardened by pride. That evening, Mira returned home quietly. She thought about the prince, the dragon, and the lessons of the day. She understood that the prince was proud, but she also knew he was beginning to understand something new. Even the most powerful beings could learn humility when confronted with truth and courage. The stars appeared overhead, bright and steady. Mira stood at the edge of her small home, gazing at them. She felt the dragon's presence still nearby, a constant reminder that some bonds were stronger than fear, stronger than anger, and stronger than pride. In that quiet moment, she made a promise to herself. She would continue to face the world with courage. She would continue to trust, to understand, and to act with respect. The prince might remain angry, and the dragon might remain wild to others, but she knew one truth clearly: bravery, kindness, and trust could change even the hardest hearts. And deep in the field, the dragon's golden eyes glimmered, watching, waiting, and ready to stand beside her whenever needed. The morning sun rose over the colony, casting golden light on the fields and streets. The humans moved carefully, still thinking about what had unfolded the past days. Whispered stories of Mira and the dragon spread from home to home. People spoke of courage, of trust, and of the power of a human who feared nothing. In the open field, the alien prince waited, his guards forming their usual line. The dragon stood beside him, though its golden eyes were fixed on Mira. Today he was calmer, though pride still burned in his chest. The prince had spent long hours thinking, replaying the events over and over. The courage of a single human had unsettled him, but it had also given him a new understanding he could not ignore. Mira walked into the field confidently. She had come not to challenge, but to show that respect and courage could exist even across worlds. The crowd of humans watched from a safe distance, silent, their eyes wide with anticipation. The prince's gaze followed her. "You come again," he said, his voice sharp but quieter than before. "Do you not fear what may happen?" Mira shook her head. "I do not fear. I respect your strength, but I will not bow to threats. Strength is not in fear. It is in trust, in understanding, and in action guided by courage." The dragon shifted beside the prince. Its massive wings flexed slightly, casting a shadow across the field. Its golden eyes glimmered with intelligence, and its body remained calm yet alert. The humans could see the bond that had grown between Mira and the dragon. It was more than trust. It was mutual respect. The prince felt the weight of every gaze upon him. The humans looked not with fear, but with curiosity and admiration for the girl who had shown bravery beyond their expectation. He realized that anger and threats could not command loyalty as Mira's courage had. His pride struggled with the truth. "You speak boldly," he said slowly, his voice measured. "Yet there is wisdom in your words. Perhaps I have been wrong to rule only with fear." Mira nodded, her calm expression unwavering. "Respect inspires loyalty far more than threats ever can. The dragon shows it even when your words try to enforce obedience." The prince glanced at the dragon. For the first time, he saw not a tool of war, but a creature capable of choosing its own path. The dragon lowered its head slightly, a gesture of acknowledgement toward Mira. The prince swallowed his pride, realizing that the beast had found a friend, someone it could trust. He turned to the crowd. "You have seen this human's courage. You have seen the choice of the dragon. Strength is not only in power, it is in understanding, in trust, and in courage." The humans listened in awe. Some nodded quietly, others whispered to one another, and the children stared wide-eyed. Mira's courage had shown them that even the most fearsome of beings could have their hearts reached with patience and respect. The prince took a deep breath. "I have learned today that power alone is not enough. Authority must be tempered with understanding. Fear can make subjects obey, but only respect can make them follow willingly." Mira stepped closer to the dragon. She placed her hand gently on its scales, smiling softly. The dragon lowered its head fully, resting it lightly against her shoulder. Its golden eyes glimmered with warmth. The humans watched, amazed at the bond they had never thought possible. The prince, though still proud, looked on quietly. His anger had faded, replaced with a sense of understanding he had never experienced. He realized that this human girl, small and fearless, had taught him a lesson he would never forget. The dragon had shown him, too, that strength could be shared, and trust could change hearts. For the first time, the prince spoke not as a ruler demanding obedience, but as a being recognizing courage and respect. You and the dragon have my acknowledgement. Your bravery is noted and your wisdom respected. I see now that strength is not only in command but in choice. The dragon shifted its massive body closer to Mira, as if to emphasize the new balance between them. The humans saw a future where fear was not the law of the colony. They saw hope, courage, and trust at work. Mira looked at the prince calmly. You do not have to see me as a threat. I only seek to act with honesty and courage. The dragon's choice is proof that respect is stronger than fear. The prince bowed his head slightly. It was a gesture small but meaningful. Then I will not harm you. I will learn from this. Perhaps there is more to humans than I once believed. The dragon gave a low rumble of agreement. Its golden eyes never left Mira. The bond between them was clear for everyone to see. A living example of courage, trust, and understanding. As the sun climbed higher, the humans began to leave the field, inspired and in awe of what had unfolded. Children whispered of Mira's bravery. Elders nodded at the lesson learned, and even the guards seemed more thoughtful. Mira stayed for a moment longer, her hand on the dragon, feeling the calm warmth of its presence. She knew the prince had learned something important, even if he would never admit it fully. Trust, respect, and courage had won the day, not threats or anger. As the alien ship prepared to leave, the prince gave one last look at Mira and the dragon. There was no prideful anger in his eyes, only understanding. A lesson had been taught, one that he would carry with him across worlds. The dragon lowered itself fully beside Mira, resting its massive head on the ground, but keeping its gaze on her. She smiled, knowing that this moment marked the beginning of a new understanding between species, between humans and aliens, and between courage and fear. For the colony, for the dragon, and for Mira, the world had shifted, and in that quiet golden light, hope and respect shone brighter than fear had ever done.